2 weeks ago, the Education Department announced it would wipe out $5.8 billion in student loan debt owed by 560,000 borrowers who had attended for-profit Corinthian colleges in the last 20 years. Corinthian Colleges was one of the largest, most corrupt, most unscrupulous companies in the for-profit college industry, but it wasn't alone in its shady dealings, far from it. So the basic primer on for-profit colleges and universities, the question that you're going to face on the final exam is this: what two numbers tell the whole story about for-profit colleges and universities? The numbers 8 and 30. What do they mean? 8% of high school graduates go to for-profit colleges and universities. 8%. 30% of all the student loan defaults in the United States are students from for-profit colleges and universities. Why? Why are these students who attend for-profit schools failing to make their student loan payments? Well, first, these industries, for-profit industry schools, charge too much in tuition. So the students can't keep up with the debt, so they borrow more. They reach a point where something happens and they have to drop out, afraid of the debt that they've accumulated. Next stage, some finish. They take their diploma from their for-profit school and they learn, unfortunately, that it's almost worthless. Westwood College is one of those fraudulent for-profit colleges. It operated 15 campuses in 5 different states, including Illinois. Westwood College. I remember driving out to O'Hare Airport and looking up on the side of one of those tall office buildings, and they had a sign for Westwood College. And I thought, what a fraud. Like Corinthian College, Westwood used high-pressure sales and marketing tactics and outright lies to pressure students to take on huge amounts of student debt. Students in Westwood's criminal justice program in Illinois were told that a Westwood criminal justice degree would all but guarantee them a good-paying job with the local police department, maybe even the FBI. What a lie. Victoria Vinces is one of the thousands of Illinois students who heard those lies and is paying the price for them. Victoria is the first person in her family ever to attend college, and that's the case more often than not. These students who come from families with no college experience don't know where to turn. They look at the advertising and unfortunately fall for it and sign up for these for-profit schools like Westwood. Victoria enrolled in the criminal justice program at Westwood in 2007, believing it would help her land a job as a probation officer or maybe even with the Immigration Service. After 3 years juggling full-time jobs and going to school full-time, Victoria was shocked to learn that a Westwood degree would not pay off at all. At that time, she owed $50,000 in student loans that she'd taken out at Westwood. Not wanting to take out more loans for a useless degree, she dropped out. She started applying for law enforcement jobs, showing them the certificate of her transcript from Westwood, and they told her that's worthless. Victoria now works for the Illinois Domestic Violence Hotline. She likes her job, and she helps a lot of people, but she's never earned enough income to make the monthly payments on her student loans. Victoria Vinces isn't someone who shirks responsibility. She's helping to raise a niece and a nephew who live with her. She just doesn't believe that she should have to pay back $50,000 in loans because of the deception. I agree. Last week I wrote to Education Secretary Miguel Cardona asking him for a second time, and I like him, but if he doesn't start answering my letters, I'm going to have to think of a way to get his attention. I asked him to cancel the student loan debt of all former Westwood criminal justice students in Illinois who were defrauded by this company. I first made this request in April of last year. It's time for a response, Mr. Secretary. Last July, the Education Secretary canceled the student loan debts of 1,600 former Westwood students. Among them were 488 Illinois students who'd taken on debt to enroll in Westwood's worthless criminal justice program. These students had all applied for relief under something known as borrower defense that allows the Education Department to cancel their student debts. There's still more than 3,000 Westwood criminal justice students in Illinois who haven't gotten that same break. Some of them, like Victoria Vinces, have carried that debt for more than 10 years. It's ruined their credit ratings. It's made them harder for them to find a job, rent an apartment, think about a future. We've known for more than a decade that Westwood used misleading marketing tactics. Now they have to be called to account. The unethical behavior was documented in detail by Illinois' former Attorney General Lisa Madigan, who sued Westwood 10 years ago. I remember that. I joined her in the press conference announcing it. The Education Department also has concluded that Westwood defrauded its criminal justice program students in Illinois. The Education Department should grant automatic loan forgiveness for all of the approximately 3,000 students who are still burdened with Westwood's criminal justice program deception. During the Trump years, the Education Department decided to take a blind eye to the situation at these for-profit schools. The Trump administration actually hired people who worked in that industry for these schools to regulate them. You can guess what happened. No regulation. It's time for the Education Department to make a difference. And let me say, it's time for us to make a difference when it comes to student loan debt. It was in 1998 when we decided, in a bill which was loaded with extras that people didn't discover until long after it passed, a bill said you couldn't discharge your student loan in bankruptcy. If you had a mortgage on a home and filed for bankruptcy, you could discharge that mortgage, even on a second home, even on a car loan, even on a loan for a boat, even on a loan for appliances, just about everything except a student loan. Well, that was the wrong decision. That was a wrong policy. There are more than 3 million student loan borrowers who owe more than $100,000 in student loans. But we decided these would be non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. There's a provision in there that says if there's an extreme hardship, you might be able to discharge your loan. Almost never does a court rule that there's an extreme hardship. This situation is unsustainable. Senator John Cornyn in Texas and I have introduced a bipartisan bill to change it, to make sure the bankruptcy code gives student debt a break. I'll continue working with him and others to get this done. Bankruptcy should always be the last resort, but it ought to be an option for those who truly need relief, and these student borrowers do. Bottom line, even with other reform measures like relief for Corinthian college students, bankruptcy reform ought to be part of the solution to student debt crisis. I hope that it will.